Something about the photos didn't sit right with people, and no one could quite explain why at first. It wasn't the dress, it wasn't the diamonds, and it definitely wasn't the setting. Everything looked like a classic, polished red carpet moment. But within seconds of the images hitting the internet, the conversation went in a completely different direction. Instead of admiration, there was hesitation. Instead of praise, there was scrutiny. And almost instantly, people stopped looking at what she was wearing and started focusing on her. When Demi Moore stepped out for the awards event, it should have been another effortless headline, the kind she's been generating for decades. The look was intentional, sharp, and unmistakably high fashion. Structured silhouette, precise styling, controlled presence. The kind of appearance that usually dominates coverage without competition. But this time, something shifted. The attention didn't stay on the glamour for long. Comments started rolling in fast, and they weren't subtle. Words like too thin, frail, and something feels off began popping up everywhere. And the more people looked, the more they felt like they were seeing something they couldn't ignore. At first, it looked like the usual celebrity commentary, the kind that fades after a few hours. But this didn't fade. It escalated, because once the internet locks onto a moment, it doesn't just observe, it dissects. Side-by-side comparisons started spreading almost immediately. Old photos next to new ones, red carpet appearances from months ago compared to now, and suddenly people weren't just reacting, they were analyzing. Zooming in on her face, her arms, her posture. Slowing down videos, freezing frames, pointing out the smallest differences like they were piecing together a larger puzzle. And that's when things crossed a line from curiosity into something else. What started as "she looks different" quickly turned into full-blown investigation mode. People began highlighting details that would normally go unnoticed. The structure of her cheeks, the sharpness of her jawline, even minor things like how her legs looked in certain angles. Every image became evidence. Every angle became a clue. And the more people joined in, the more intense it became. It stopped feeling like a conversation and started feeling like a collective breakdown of her entire appearance. Then, almost on cue, a familiar theory entered the picture. The moment people noticed weight loss, the speculation kicked in. Comments started linking her to the same narrative that's been following other celebrities. The idea that there must be something behind it. Something artificial. Something controlled. And even without any real proof, that theory spread fast. Faster than any confirmation ever could. Because in today's internet culture, once a narrative feels believable, it doesn't need evidence. It just needs repetition. What's wild is how automatic this has become. A celebrity appears thinner than before, and within hours the same assumptions show up. No statements, no facts, no verification. Just pattern recognition and speculation being treated like truth. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to reverse. Because people aren't just reacting to what they see, they're reacting to what they think they already know. But this situation hit differently, and there's a reason for that. Demi Moore isn't just another celebrity having a moment. She's someone people have watched for decades. From Ghost to G.I. Jane, she built a reputation around discipline, control, and physical presence. She's always been associated with strength, consistency, and a kind of image that felt almost untouchable. And when you've maintained that level for so long, any shift, no matter how small, feels amplified. So when people saw these new photos, they weren't just looking at a single moment. They were comparing it to years of memory. Years of how she looked, how she carried herself, how she presented. And that's where the emotional reaction comes from. It's not just, "she looks different." It's, "this doesn't match what I remember." And that gap between expectation and reality is what drives the intensity. Once those comparisons started circulating, the momentum became unstoppable. More posts, more opinions, more breakdowns. People picking sides. Some saying it's just lighting, angles, styling. Others insisting something deeper is going on. And neither side backing down. Because once the internet splits into two narratives, it feeds itself. Every comment fuels the next. Every theory invites a stronger counter-theory. And the conversation keeps growing whether there's new information or not. But underneath all of this, there's a bigger pattern that most people don't even realize they're part of. The same system that praises a certain look will turn on it almost instantly. One moment, extreme thinness is labeled elegant or high fashion. The next, it becomes concerning or unhealthy. The line moves constantly and no one actually controls where it lands, which means the people being judged can never really get it right. That's the trap. You're expected to stay youthful but not look artificial. Stay thin but not too thin. Maintain perfection but somehow still look natural. And the second you drift even slightly outside that invisible boundary, the reaction flips. Not gradually, instantly. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how many years you've spent building your image. The conversation resets overnight. Some media outlets tried to keep the focus where it usually belongs. The styling, the luxury, the presence, framing it as another example of high-level red carpet execution. But that narrative didn't stick. Because once the public locks onto something else, the original story doesn't matter anymore. And this time, the public chose to focus on her body, her face, and what they believed had changed. Scroll through any comment section and you'll see it. People pointing out details, questioning what's going on, forming opinions based on a few images. And the moment those opinions start repeating, they begin to feel like facts, even when nothing has actually been confirmed. And that's the part that makes the situation more complicated than it looks. Because despite everything being said, there is still no official statement. No confirmation, no verified issue, nothing concrete that explains any of the assumptions being made. Yet the narrative continues to grow as if it's already been proven. This isn't really about diagnosing anything. It's about how quickly perception turns into belief, and how once that belief takes hold, it becomes stronger than reality itself. People aren't waiting for answers anymore. They're building their own. Demi Moore hasn't addressed any of it, and realistically, she doesn't have to. But that hasn't slowed anything down. If anything, the silence adds more fuel. Because when there's no response, people fill in the gaps themselves, and those gaps get filled with whatever fits the story they already believe. And maybe that's the most revealing part of all this. This was never just about one appearance, or one set of photos. It's about how fast the internet can take a moment, reshape it, and turn it into something much bigger than it actually is. Because once a narrative starts moving, it doesn't wait for truth. It builds its own version of it. And by the time the facts catch up, the story has already been decided.